Greetings, welcome, happy Sunday, Aqaba. I can actually say Aqaba, which is welcome in the tree language, which is spoken in the areas in Ghana outside of Accra, the capital city, which is where I'm actually broadcasting from right now. I'm broadcasting from the Kumasi region in central Ghana, and it's 12 o'clock at night here. And as you can see, because Africans commemorate these holidays differently than how it's done in the US. So there isn't the rampant consumerism. So try to show you all, I'm sitting in the lounge of the hotel and people just kind of just hanging out. There's loud music, but I have headphones in. So hopefully that won't be too distracting to you. But everybody's up and out and, in their own way, celebrating how they see the birth of their savior. And we are here to talk about exactly that today on this week's episode of Our Ancestors' Voices. Christianity and Christ is the topic for today. And so we're really happy that you're here. We hope that you're at your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual space. And if you're not, that you're rapidly approaching that, okay? That's what we wish for you. And we want to give thanks to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. Definitely want to always acknowledge their struggle in everything that we do. And they're just right to get their lands back. And of course, we want to honor our African ancestors. We went to a wonderful artistic display yesterday, and this is for those of you who are Africans, and you're always talking about how Africans in Africa don't look, don't see you, don't acknowledge you. You got to do your homework so you don't sound so ignorant, because this art expression I saw yesterday was outside of Accra, and what it is that they have sculpted 3,500 heads that represent ancestors who were stolen from Africa in the transatlantic slave trade, and they placed them in the ground. Some of them are in the ground, some of them are partially buried in the ground, some of them are in the water, some of them have shackles on, some of them are buried in the water, and this represents what's happened to us as a people. Very powerful, very moving. And this is all I've heard since I've been here, since Tuesday, is please tell our people in the West that we are one and we have to strengthen our struggle, strengthen our struggle. So we're just glad to be able to do that and be here today from Ghana. The fact that it's after midnight, still just full of energy and excitement to be able to broadcast from our motherland, our home, Africa, and to talk about Christianity and Christ. So we'll just start as we always do. Y'all will not believe all these folks. It's like a nightclub atmosphere in here. I'm sitting in a hotel lounge. But so just to do our quick introductions, again, Our Ancestors' Voices is sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the APRP, and the APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass Pan-African political party, which is based in Africa. The sole reason why I'm here. Our objective, Pan-Africanism, is defined as one unified socialist Africa, one unified socialist Africa. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is outlined in Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. That's on your page if you're looking at one there. And Our Ancestors' Voices is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu, and Shakura, my biological and ideological daughter. And just glad that we're both active within the APRP. Just glad that she's well, hoping that all of you are well. Glad that I'm where I'm at, preparing to go to Cape Coast tomorrow and look at the slave dungeons. And that's always an overwhelmingly emotional experience, even for me. And I've been there multiple times. It'll be like my fourth time going there, but it'll be my wife's first time. So really, looking forward to it, but then also, just understanding that it's going to be a heavy, heavy day. So we'll get started with the topic of today. And to do that, I will turn it over to Shakura.
Greetings, everyone. echoing what my dad said, hoping you all are doing well and staying safe. Just really grateful to the universe and to the ancestors today for being able to speak to you all and to broadcast this, because I think that there is so much there's so much hope that we have as a people. And I think just in being able to wake up and being able to understand that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done and holding ourselves accountable for that, there is so much grace and humility that comes with that. And it's really quite a privilege, I'll say, to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And I love, thinking about that, because when you're in an organization that is working for justice, that's exactly the satisfying feeling that you receive. You understand very quickly that the organization is not just for you. That organization is designed to help improve the lives of many, 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 many people, even people you may not know, people, excuse me, that you may not ever come in contact with, people who may not live in the same time zone as you, or the same country as you, or the same continent. That's the beauty of being in an organization that's working for justice, is the work that you are doing is going to impact humanity, whether you have a direct connection to those people it's impacting or not. And you don't do the work because you just want to impact the people you know. You do the work because it's important for the work to be done so that the conditions can change for all people. I've shared this example before and I'll say it again. One of the biggest pushes that I am trying to engage my students with is helping them understand from a public health standpoint that their objective as public health advocates is to advocate for all humanity, no matter what their race, class, or gender status is, that every single person deserves to be healthy, whether they're poor and European, whether they're poor and LGBTQ, whether they're poor and African, if they're poor and colonized, if they are poor and identify as a femme person, it does not matter. Everyone deserves to achieve healthy outcomes. And a lot of times, the system and propaganda have taught us that you can achieve healthy outcomes as long as you quote unquote apply yourself. And as long as you do what you're supposed to do and take care of business and pay for health insurance and go see the doctor and all those things. But it never talks about how the system also stresses you out and puts you through conditions that make it very difficult for you to achieve healthy outcomes if you are colonized, if you are a femme person, if you are poor and maybe identify as European. And so there's some different pieces here that we have to look at, especially as it connects to faith and justice, because being in an organization that's working for justice, it recenters that. It reframes for you why you're doing the work that you're doing. Because being in an organization that works for justice is most of the time fulfilling and satisfying, but sometimes it's hard work, you all. Sometimes it's exhausting. My dad just explained to you that it's close to midnight where he is, and he's still probably processing jet lag. But this is part of the piece of being in an organization that's working for justice, being dedicated to the craft, being disciplined, being committed, showing up even when you are literally processing something on a different time zone with jet lag, and still showing up for the people because the message still needs to be sent to the masses. That's what it's all about. I had an engagement earlier tonight and I couldn't even make it back to my place. So I am in my car broadcasting, but this is why it's so important to me. I didn't want to miss this and I didn't want to log in late. So we pull over and we do what we have to do. But that's what being in an organization for justice will teach you. It'll teach you that what you're doing is not just about yourself. And that's what we're trying to get across to you tonight in terms of faith and justice is, if you identify as praying or believing or worshiping or practicing with a faith that you define as being one that centers wealth and individual well-being and does not acknowledge collective justice or humanitarianism or anything that benefits all people, regardless of their race, their class, or their gender, then we have a serious situation on our hands, because at the end of the day, really what you're saying is you are worshiping a system or an organization of religion or even spirituality that does not value humanity. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, but that can't be true though, because a lot of people are worshiping and they are believers of different faiths and religions and spiritualities for the same reason that they're trying to resist propaganda. The whole reason that people start to practice believing and worshiping is because they're trying to find an outlet to deal with the mayhem and the madness that exists out there in the world. So they find a way to center and to focus on what it is they want to pray for. They find a way to find how their beliefs align with the leader of that practice or the leader of that religion or spirituality. And then they try to live their life like that leader would have done, whether it's following the Quran or whether it's following the Bible, or maybe you're a practicing Buddhist, whatever that may be for you. So the point I'm making to you is you cannot tell me that it is okay to worship a faith or a religion that promotes wealth and individual well-being and does not acknowledge collective justice and humanitarianisms for collective people, collectivism. It does not acknowledge those things. You cannot tell me that worshiping a faith or a religion like that is working in your best interest. First of all, because you're not doing that faith just for yourself. You may be on a basic level because maybe you find peace by worshiping with these particular followings of people, or maybe you find sentiment with that. But at the end of the day, you're not doing all of this just for them, because the piece about worshiping also comes with doing other activities that are supposed to do what? Improve the lives of other people. So when you do want to go to church because maybe you want to fellowship with other people, when they do the announcements, they announce that so and so is still on the prayer list because they're sick and shut in. So what do? Then you make them a pan of macaroni and cheese and you take it over to their house because they're sick and shut in. So they can't cook right now. They probably can't order out because maybe they have different barriers as to why they can't do that. And now you're doing exactly what the faith is teaching you to do. It's teaching you to think about other people, to put other people's needs ahead of your own, and to do something selfless so that you can have some humanitarianism. So that's precisely my point. When they announced that we need volunteers to feed the shelterless people, when they announced that we need volunteers to read to the students at school, when they announced that we need volunteers to go to the pet animal place, the shelter. I couldn't even think of the name. These are all examples, you all. When you volunteer to build houses, when you volunteer to change plumbing systems in houses, these are all examples of you doing some collective work for someone else. So you cannot tell the All African People's Revolutionary Party that the faith that you worship is very much okay with putting individual needs first. It is very much okay with promoting wealth, and that it is very much okay with not acknowledging collective justice. That simply is not going to stand for the kind of work that we're trying to do. And whether you believe in being a Pan-Africanist and whether you believe that Africa should be one unified socialist Africa, you better bet your bottom dollar that if you are practicing with any faith, that faith, for the most part, is not supporting individualism and wealth over collective justice. And if it is, then perhaps maybe you need to reevaluate who you are praying to. Because again, the question becomes, why are you praying to them if they are not serving your needs? If your needs are just to be individualistic, well, so be it. But I'm pretty sure you're not going to be listening to this broadcast, especially this late in the year when we've been talking constantly since January and even before then about the importance of putting other people's needs first, about the importance of fighting back so that we all can stand a chance, about the importance of resisting capitalism and consumerism and propaganda so that we all can stand a chance. We've been begging you for 2 years now to join an organization that is working for justice, because that is the key to changing the conditions that we all are suffering from. We all are suffering from them because not enough of us are in organizations to fight back, you all. That is the key. That is the key to unlocking this. So you cannot tell me that your faith that you practice is doing you good if they're promoting individualism and wealth and greed over people and humanity. You cannot tell me that that works for you. As I just said, the whole reason people decide to become new believers and followers is because they're trying to find escape avenues and routes to help them deal with the madness that exists in the world. They're trying to find ways to address poverty. They're trying to find ways to address people going hungry in food deserts and insecure situations. They're trying to find ways to help address students that are lacking education. They're trying to find ways to address domestic violence and intimate partner violence. This is why we do that work. This is why. So that means there's no reason for you to support a faith that is prioritizing individualism and wealth, because that means that they are promoting capitalism. And ultimately, you cannot tell me that the faith you believe in supports capitalism. Those two simply do not go together. And I can tell you more about why they don't go together in the next slide, please. So when we think about holidays and capitalism, we have to understand that in this particular capitalist world, that means that profits are always, you all, always going to be more significant than people, animals, plants, and the planet. They're always going to be more important than those entities. And you have to understand there is nothing that is going to be more crucial than us understanding that everything under capitalism is for sale. I saw my friend yesterday, and she told me that she was not doing well. She had just suffered from a very extended, large toothache. She had a toothache for about 2 weeks straight. And I've never had a toothache, but I know that sounds like some very intense pain. So I asked her, I said, how are you feeling now? And she said, well, I was able to get some medication, so it's helping with the pain, but my tooth still hurts. And this is going on week 3. And I'm like, ugh. And she's like, yeah. So not only is my tooth hurting, it's affecting my jaw, it's affecting my temples near my brain, and it's affecting my whole face. Well, that makes sense because your teeth are connected to your nerves, and your nerve is a whole nervous system in your body. So that makes a lot of sense that all of that is going to be impacted. So I'm feeling really bad for my friend at this point. And I asked her, I said, were you able to go see a dentist? This is where capitalism is the vicious system that we need to call it out for right here. I just told you this girl has been in pain for damn near 3 weeks. I just told you that. Now she has gone back and forth, you all, and I do mean back and forth. She started contacting the dental office in October when it started hurting, but the pain has gotten severely worse in the last 3 weeks. But since October, y'all, she's been trying to get an appointment so that she can get the surgery or whatever she needs to get to address this issue. The dental office told her, well, we need to get a claim filed with your dental insurance, so you need to call them because we haven't received the form yet. She called the dental insurance. They said, yeah, we haven't received the form for them that they need to send us so that we can okay the procedure for it to take place. She contacted the dental office again. Meanwhile, both entities are telling her what she needs to do. None of these entities are trying to address her freaking pain. None of them are trying to deal with the fact that this woman is in some serious pain, because it's not about her. It's about making as much money as possible. That's what it's about. And you cannot tell me that you would enjoy living in a system like that. That is a horrible thing to do, to inflict pain on someone and to have the ability to fix that pain, but you sit back and you do nothing. And she would literally go back and forth like a tennis ball. If you play tennis, you know she would volley the ball back and forth. Only difference is my friend was the ball, literally going back and forth, calling the dental office, then calling the insurance company, calling the dental office, then calling the insurance company. And finally, the insurance company was able to figure out the dental office never sent the form because the person who was supposed to send the form got fired or whatever. And they just didn't feel like they needed to communicate with my friend, hey, the reason this hasn't happened is because the person who was supposed to make it happen no longer works here. Okay, that's also capitalism, but we're not even going to go into that. And so the point I'm making to you all is we do believe, she and I, that the dental office was very much okay with never getting her insurance form because they really wanted her to pay full price. They did not want the insurance company to pay it all. And the reason I'm sharing this story with you is because that's the kind of system that capitalism is, you all. That's the kind of system that it is. This girl has been in pain since October. This girl, it's affecting her work. It's affecting her ability to bring income in to feed her children. It's affecting her ability to live a peaceful life. It's affecting her mental health. You all know how it feels when you're in excruciating pain. It is not an enjoyable situation. the only thing you can think about is relieving that pain as soon as possible, because it affects your ability to think logically. It affects your ability to do things that you would normally do because all you can think about is how uncomfortable you are. But that's capitalism. And so these holidays are really no different in that, and that they're seriously centering on trying to promote how they can make as much money as possible. And we're sharing this seminar because we're trying to encourage you all to find the comfortability in being uncomfortable. It takes time. I understand that. It does. But we are seriously asking you to consider, how does your faith factor in to you celebrating these holidays? Because 9 times out of 10, your faith has nothing to do with the, excuse me, consumerism. It has nothing to do with the capitalistic profit gain. It has nothing to do with that. And you have to figure out a way to separate the two. You can't let the system tell you they're the same. I had a situation earlier tonight where I met some new people for the first time, but they are connected to me in a certain way. And so I wanted to acknowledge them. But I literally went person to person and I handed them the gift. And then I said, I do not celebrate capitalist holidays. And it was very awkward for that person. It wasn't awkward for me, but it was awkward for that person because I guarantee you no one had ever said that to them before. And so then they're looking at me like, well, why are you giving me this gift? And I said, this is not a Christmas gift. Well, now I really confused them because they're very confused because it's December 24th and everybody celebrates Christmas, right? No, I don't. So I said, I don't celebrate capitalist holidays. I'm anti-capitalist. This is not a Christmas gift. This is a gift where I just wanted to acknowledge you and see you as a person. And I wanted to let you know I was thinking about you. I just happened to be giving it to you today because it's our first time meeting and you mean something to me. These are the kind of principles that we're asking you to commit to. We're not asking you to change your lifestyle. If you enjoy giving people gifts, you need to do what you need to do. And you can still be in an organization working for justice and still commit to your principles of giving people gifts if that's what's important to you. But we are asking you to reevaluate how capitalism and propaganda have thwarted you off the path that you thought you were on, because they're more convinced that they want you to be on the path they need you to be on so they can keep guaranteeing that your profit can be made. You all know that this particular holiday, the one tomorrow, all of that is about profit gain. And you can see the slide on the chart, the bar graph on the chart, and how it shows that companies like Amazon and Walmart, all these other corporations, they are soaring and doing really, really well this time of year because it is so much easier to buy gifts online. And Amazon knows that. Also, you can buy anything at Amazon, and Amazon knows that too. So we have to continue to figure out, how do we hold on to our sense of humanity during all of this propaganda rush, you all? How do we hold on to that? How do we continue to commit to our principles? Like I said, if giving gifts is something you enjoy doing, there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to make sure that you create a thin line that separates your values as a person who wants to give gifts versus it being quote unquote holiday, when really the holiday falls under capitalism. Because if you're giving gifts just because you promote capitalism, well, we have a serious problem. And you need to evaluate why you're supporting a system that clearly doesn't value you, especially if you get a toothache. You need to acknowledge that. You need to acknowledge that capitalism does not need your help in profiting. We need to actually unprofit and de-profit capitalism. We need to tear that system apart and take it down because it does not benefit anyone. Capitalism is one of the worst systems in the world. And this is why people are sick and suffering from health issues, because of capitalism. So whatever your priority is, maybe it's education, maybe it's health insurance, whatever it is, capitalism is going to make it very difficult for you to achieve the outcomes you're trying to achieve, because it's all about making money. It's not about putting people and their needs first. It's about making as much money off of them as possible. So you have to commit to your principles, do like me, and risk being the unpopular person at the party because you still understand that you need to sleep well tonight. And like I said, you can live a life and do what you need to do, but just know why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just do it because everybody else is doing it, because capitalism doesn't want you to think for yourself. Well, we're asking you to think for yourself. We're asking you to know why you do what you do, to have a backup reason for why you do what you do, and to be able to explain it to people if they ask you, because they will. There are other people who understand the contradictions. of capitalism and holidays and faith. And I had a person ask me tonight, so if you don't celebrate Christmas, then what's the purpose of this gift? And why are you anti-capitalist? People are curious. They want to know because not many people are talking like this. And that's how you know change is coming. That's how you know change is slowly evolving. But this is why joining an organization working for justice has benefited me because now I can actually give an answer that I'm proud of. Whereas when I was maybe in my 20s, I probably would have said something more ignorant. Well, I'm just doing this because my parents told me. Well, now I can stand on my own 2 feet because I now know that these are my beliefs, not what my parents have taught me. And again, joining an organization that's working for justice has given me that confidence. So as I prepare to turn the presentation back over to my dad, I just want to remind you all that you have a responsibility, and we've said it before, we will say it again. This is one of our last broadcasts before the new year starts. Make an effort to join an organization that is working for justice as one of your new year goals that you want to have. If you do resolutions, great. If you don't do resolutions, make it a goal still. You can continue to learn how to cook more or work out more, or maybe you want to buy a car or whatever it is that's important to you in 2024. But you should also prioritize joining an organization. You won't know if you like it until you try it. The best way to try it is to put your foot out there and just step out and go. And this whole presentation is about faith. You need to have faith that you're going to find an organization that's working for justice that will work for you. That is true faith. It's finding an organization for justice that works for you. And you may have to go through some bad ones first. That's a part of the experience. But you also might find one that works for you. But we need you all. We need you all. The conditions are only getting worse in occupied Palestine. We need you. The conditions are only getting worse for indigenous people. We need you. The conditions are only getting worse for colonized people, especially Africans. Femme people, especially LGBTQ. We need you. We need you. We need you. You cannot sit idle by anymore. That is not working for us. And if you're still not ready to commit, please support Pan-Africanist organizations because we can still support our Palestinian comrades and our indigenous comrades with your help, with your donations. We can do that. When they speak at African Liberation Day, we give them speaker fees. When they speak at Pan-African Women's Day, we pay for them to have their speaker fees. So we can still support our comrades even if you're not able to, but we need your help, you all. And we would prefer to have you, not your donation. But if you can only give a donation, please do so. But we need you. Now is the time. You have got to take a stand because our people are still dying. Our people are still dying. There's someone who is of African descent who's probably dying right now in the city of Memphis that I'm in. This is just the reality, y'all, because we don't matter. So make a choice and join an organization that's working for justice. Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. And Shakur, I just want to make a couple of points to illustrate the topic that we're talking about today. The first is for those of you that may have missed the beginning. So I'm broadcasting right now from the Kumasi region of Ghana, the central region of Ghana, excuse me, which is called Kumasi. If you're not familiar with it, you know the singer Ashanti. Well, that's who she's naming herself after. Are the people of this region who have been strong, strong communities throughout West Africa for centuries, going back to Yah Santawa, who was an Ashanti leader, a woman 100 years ago, and before that. So I'm here, and one of the things that's always when we're talking about faith and values, one of the things that's always really struck me every single time I've come to Africa has been the peace that exists here. And what I mean by peace is the level of humanity, that people respect each other and value each other. So, I can't really show you. I'm sitting in a lounge at the hotel and that there's music going, there's people here and everything, but nobody's going to be really exchanging presents or doing that sort of thing. What's happening now, and understand that it's It's 12:30 at night here. We're 8 hours ahead of the West Coast of the United States, 6 hours ahead of Central Time, and 5 hours ahead of Eastern Time. So, it's 12:30 at night. People are just up, they're socializing, they're doing that. That's how people commemorate a holiday like this. And there's a lot of humanity in that to me. And I think that that's one of the reasons that I really love about our African culture, our humanist culture, and the movement that we're involved in to liberate our African continent and our African people. And the other part of that is, like, I can sit here right now and do this, and nobody cares that I'm here doing this, right? Nobody's paying any attention to me. And the level of attention I get in the US, just being 6'3" and 220 pounds, this is such a breath of fresh air. Anybody who has these experiences in these backward societies that we live in understands what I'm talking about right now. It's such a relief. There's no way I would feel comfortable doing this if I was in the States, because it's just a totally different atmosphere. So I think that those are important points, because we're talking about values, and your faith is not what you profess, it's what you do. And so that's how we want to talk about it, because we know that this holiday in the capitalist world has nothing to do with Christ. It's supposed to be about the birth of Christ. That's what they told you when you grew up. That's what they told all of us, that it's supposed to be about Christ being born. And they show you that false image that's displayed on the screen right now of the European. And we all got that growing up. We were all conditioned that way. And if you say you weren't conditioned that way, then you're just a liar, because I know that no matter who you are, when you hear this, you cannot refute it. If you closed your eyes right now and I said Jesus, the image that's going to come in your head is the one that I have on the screen. That's why I have it on there. And that is the evidence of how we're conditioned to interpret it. It doesn't matter what we believe or what we know or it doesn't matter if you say, I hate Europeans, you're still going to see that image because it's been conditioned into us 24/7, 365 days a year. So the point we want to make about that is, if Christianity is supposed to be about compassion and improved human interaction, then we have to look at the people who say they're Christians, and based upon what Christianity should be as compared to what they are actually doing, Christianity should be outlawed tonight. It never allowed to practice Christianity again until the problems are straightened out. Because clearly what the followers, so-called followers of Christ, do, and what Christ was supposed to stand for, there's a volcano, a Grand Canyon of separation between the values and the practice. And this is, as Shakur said, because Christianity in the capitalist world is only about maintaining capitalism. That's why in the first slide we had the picture of the mega church, the Church of Joel Osteen, who's this scam cracker preacher in Houston, Texas, here in the U.S. And he has a net worth of about $100 million, swindling these poor working class people out of their money, making them believe that if they don't give him their hard-earned money, they're not going to go to some imaginary place called heaven. And this is how religion works primarily in the capitalist world. And I don't just mean the United States of America. It works that way here. I mean, they have billboards here in Ghana that depict religious leaders like they're rock stars, like they're celebrities. Big billboards like you would expect to see for Beyonce. They have them for these religious leaders here, wanting you to tune into their services and give them whatever you got. And some of them, a lot of them, they just advertise themselves as prophet this, prophet Williams, prophet this. Prophet means that you speak directly to God. That's what that means. So, this is the criminality, if you will. And if you won't, that's your damn problem. But that's the criminality of how Christianity is practiced by the majority of people who claim to be followers. And so, let's start with this. Jesus in December, the Christmas, December 25th, supposedly being the birthday of Jesus, that's a lie in and of itself. Let's just start there. That's a myth. I mean, practically all biblical scholars agree that Jesus the man was born in either September or maybe March, but certainly not December. And there are a number of books that do outstanding research on the topic of who Jesus was. We only have a short time. We can't get all into that to the degree that we would want to, but we're qualified to do that. But we encourage you to do some of the work we've done. And the book that we show there on the screen, The Politics of Jesus, is a great start. It's a great book that talks about who Jesus was and the contradictions with how Christianity is commemorated in the backward capitalist world. And so, one of the things that's often missed is this question of justice and Jesus. Because right now, the reality that we have in the capitalist world is that justice and Jesus have absolutely nothing to do with one another. And, let's study for a second who Jesus was, just for a brief second. Jesus was never a citizen of Rome. He never gained citizenship of Rome. And if you look back if you study the Bible, you look back in the biblical times, the citizenship of Rome was what everyone aspired to achieve because that gave you access to all of the best resources in society. Jesus didn't have that. Like most of the poor people, they didn't have that either. And so he didn't have the class privileges that came from that. And consequently, his morality was based upon this reality because we don't know what you believe, but for us, we believe that Jesus was a man without question and that he was a prophet. I don't personally believe that he was God. I don't believe in the Holy Trinity. I just don't believe that. I don't believe in monotheism. I don't believe in a God in the sky. But I belong to a revolutionary Pan-Africanist political party, and that means that we recruit all Africans into our party. And so we have Africans who have spiritual beliefs like I do. We have Africans that are atheists. We have Africans that are Muslims. We have Africans that are Christians, Africans that practice Ife or Santeria. We have everybody in the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So, we know that for us in our analysis, if we just take the point and say that, well, okay, we'll say that Jesus was certainly a man. We all can hopefully agree on that. And he didn't benefit from the privileged position that these other people held, like Paul in the Roman society. He had a class consciousness and he wanted to wage war against the Roman Empire. That's what the crucifixion of Jesus was all about. We studied the Bible, you all. We didn't have to, we don't need to go to no church building and listen to Reverend Pig's Feet or Bishop Hot Sauce tell us who Jesus was and what he did. We know the history. That's why Jesus struggled against the Roman Empire. That's why he was crucified. That is the reason why he was crucified. But yet, they never talk about any of this that I'm talking to you about right now because they want us to believe that Jesus and capitalism are one and the same. And I'm not saying they have an agenda for us to believe that. I think most of these pig's feet, pork chop ministers don't even know what capitalism. If you put a gun to their head, they couldn't tell you what capitalism was. But they don't have to know in that way. Capitalism has conditioned all of us to do everything all day, every day to represent its interests. Whether we know that we're doing that for capitalism or not is completely irrelevant. That's what we're doing. So what these people want us to believe is that Jesus is about getting a big church with all the modern amenities, getting a big house for the pastor with all the modern amenities, big car, expensive car with all the modern amenities. And this is the way that you worship Jesus. There are millions of people on the earth that believe that lie, that this is how you worship Jesus is by demonstrating that you are committed to the church, which means you're committed to the pastor. And they will even say that. You have to take care of the pastor. If you don't, Jesus will understand that you're not committed to preaching the gospel, because the pastor is the number one person that's preaching the gospel. And since that's the primary responsibility of everybody that's Christian, if you're not taking care of the pastor, then you're going against the will of God. That's the dominant thinking out here today. So what we're saying is that all of that has to be smashed, because that's a bunch of utter and complete nonsense. Utter and complete nonsense. And we'll give you some other examples. Like if you look at just the current state of affairs with, I'll say, the elite classes, the petty bourgeoisie classes, the bourgeoisie classes, the people that run and manage the world today in the capitalist countries, like the Zionist state of Israel, for example, the United Snakes of America, Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, Spain, all these corrupt societies, Australia, Canada, all of these criminal societies. If you look at these societies, you would not be able to argue with me if I said the dominant way that Jesus is viewed is that you're the most adamant people who are supporting Jesus in these societies I just named are the people who are representing the nationalism, the capitalist nationalism of those countries, and seeing Christianity as being in line with protecting the capitalist interests of those countries. So, for example, in the United States of America, for millions of people in that, oh, thank God I'm not there right now, in that backward cesspool nation, then the youth are laughing because I called the U.S. It is a backward cesspool nation. That's all it's ever been. That's all it ever will be. They're nodding because they know more than people in the U.S. know. But what I'm saying is that they understand that the way they practice Christianity, rather, is that if you're pro-war for capitalism, that this is somehow strangely the will of God, and that God is on the side of the U.S. military industrial complex. They're representing God when they go and fight. That's what people believe. Millions of people. The British imperialist complex is representing God. You all see in the last couple of months, people believe the Zionist state of Israel is on the side of God. They've stolen the land of the Palestinians. They've murdered and oppressed the Palestinian people for 80 years. But yet somehow, some way, they're on the side of God. This capitalist system of Britain, US, France, etc., and so forth, was built on the backs of the African enslaved people who were murdered and kidnapped from Africa. I'm going to the slave dungeons here in Ghana tomorrow, but yet these are the people who are closest to God. And the way that they justify believing that is that these people have more material privilege within the capitalist system. So in the eyes of these backward thinking people, that must be evidence that they are closer to God because they're doing better on a material level. But in reality, the reason why the world is the way it is because the forces who control the means of production, the capitalist classes, are viciously exploiting and repressing the majority of people on earth. That's why they have what they have, and the majority of us don't have anything. But most people don't understand it like that. And they've enacted this value system attached to these capitalist values from the church, I'm talking about, where if you don't have something, go to church. Go to any church. You can just pick one on your own and you'll see it in action. You go in there and people get up and testify. They talk about how they use drugs and they talk about how they found the Holy Ghost and they're not on drugs. But that's great. Whatever can help them get off of drugs is great. But most of them, if we're honest, they're just replacing one addiction for another, because what they're really saying is that they have been convinced to believe that the reason why they were on drugs and suffering is because they didn't have this close relationship with this capitalist Jesus. And that now they have developed this close relationship with this capitalist Jesus. They're going to get a house and a car. And this is somehow strangely become the measuring rod for success for a human being, having these material possessions. And what we're saying is that any true Christian, any true Muslim, Any true person that stands for humanity has to stand up and say all of that I just said is an absolute bunch of trash. And that the way that you demonstrate that you are a person of quality is that you stand for principles of justice and you live those principles out regardless of the personal consequences that come your way for doing so. Those are the people who represent the values of justice. I mean, how the hell can you sit there every Easter and say that you're worshiping a Jesus that was crucified on the cross because he stood up for justice, but you don't stand up for justice nowhere? Talking about you want to be more like, you don't want to be more like Jesus. You want to be more about the cowards that run the United Snakes in the Zionist state of Israel. That's what you want to be, because they have convinced you that capitalism and faith in Jesus are one and the same, and they're not. And so that's why we know that any true Christian has to always be pro-justice. It has to start with that. It has to start with that. It can't start with anything else. And that means that a true Christian has to be anti-war. You can't be, certainly can't be pro-war that's based on, and understand the difference between capitalist wars and revolution, because some of us are really confused. We're so confused with the slave ideology of the master. We don't know, our head from our a-hole. But when we're talking about war, we're talking about the kind of wars that you're accustomed to seeing. What the thing that they're doing in occupied Palestine, attacking and terrorizing the Palestinian people in Gaza. It's not a war because the Palestinians don't even have an army. They don't have tanks. They have nothing that they can't launch from their arm. As one commentator said, I thought very well, all they have is glorified fireworks. And that's absolutely true. Glorified fireworks. So it's not a war, but you have to be anti what the Zionist state of Israel is doing. You have to be anti what the US military does all over the world. You have to be anti what all these imperialist militaries are if you're a true Christian. If you're not anti these imperialist militaries are doing, then you're just not a Christian. You're a tool for capitalism. That's all you are. And you ain't going to no heaven. You ain't going nowhere but to your grave as a dead skunk carcass. And when you die, the people close to you just be trying to see what you have so that they can take it and go on with their life. You have to be anti-poverty if you're a true Christian. You cannot adopt this backward view that, well, people are poor. There's just people, there's always poor people in the Bible. If you study the Bible, you would never let anybody make that statement to you again. Because all the Bible's full of glorification of people that prostitute their bodies. It's full of killing. It's full of all these things. And I don't believe in the Bible, so that doesn't bother me at all. But I'm saying for those of you that do, that's a very weak analysis to say, well, in the Bible, so therefore it must be true. Instead, what we should do is, if you want to focus on it, focus on the fables in there that make sense. Like a rich man has a lower chance of getting into heaven than a camel does of getting through the needle, or whatever that parable goes. So that makes perfect sense. That's a logical statement. So any true Christian has to be for justice, like Jesus, and cannot be for just kind of ambiguous and arbitrary about poverty. Has to be committed to wiping poverty out. That's what any true Christian has to be. Any true Christian can't be for homelessness. It says anti-homelessness, but it should be any true Christian has to be against homelessness, has to be against houselessness, and has to be willing to engage in whatever resources they have to eradicate all systems of injustice. And anyone that's claiming to be a Christian that is not doing those things is just not a Christian, period. And we have to build our movement and get strong enough to the point where we can call that out and call it what it is. I don't care if it's our mother. I don't care who the hell it is, that we can call it out. That's just not what Christianity is, because Christianity started in Africa. And if it didn't start in Africa, it certainly had a large percentage of its growth and development in Africa. And so we should want to protect the integrity of Christianity even if we're not Christians. That's certainly what I want to do. I want to protect the integrity of it because if because of its relationship to Africa, it's definitely a part of our culture. So I don't want to see it misrepresented, even though I don't practice. So that's our responsibility to call out the false prophets of Jesus and to make sure people understand what it should be. And that if you're a true Christian, you're revolutionary. You're socialist if you're a true Christian. No, what the hell kind of Christian is anti-communist? That's not possible. That's an oxymoron for that to happen. But yet this is what a lot of people believe because this is what has become dominant. You know, if you take a child in a room and you don't give that child any access to any other human beings, and you tell them a lie the same over and over and over again, they're going to believe the lie eventually. And that's where we are right now. So we want to just say to close out that we're not saying that if you have family on the 25th, because it's already the 25th where I am in Ghana. If you have family, you can't have family over. We're not saying that. Have your family over. But when you have them there, you should have at least 20 minutes, or I'm sorry, 20 seconds at least, where you raise the question of justice and the need for justice in the world. So you should use these family get-togethers as opportunities to talk to your family about justice. Absolutely. So we're not saying don't do that. What we are saying is that if we're people who are for justice, we have to make decisions. Some of them make us a little uncomfortable, but the purpose of it is to ensure that we are waging a necessary struggle that points out the contradictions that exist. You know, for the last few weeks, I'll just tell you about what I've done. 2 weeks ago, I took a road trip 7 hours one way from where I live to help embattled community organize themselves for self-defense against white supremacist attacks, real life-threatening life supremacist attacks. And I'm going to be going to that place multiple times to help them get organized. And then did that and literally packed and jumped on a plane and came here to do this work here at home for the AAPRP and for the African Revolution. All of it is for the AAPRP and the African Revolution. But my point is, am I tired? I'm tired as hell. It's 1 o'clock in the morning almost here. I'm tired as hell, but my spirit is energized because when you at least make a sincere effort to stand on the side of justice, then your spirit is going to be energized and it's going to give you all the energy you need to do the work that you did, that you need to do. So when you talk to these false Christians and how you doing, I'm too blessed to be stressed. That's nothing but a fake facade. When you're really doing the work of Jesus, you don't have to respond like that because people will know that you're doing well based on how you conduct yourself because you will have, for me, it's the energy of the ancestors that flows through my veins and makes me one of the young party comrades that I don't, just meeting and honored to meet, reached out to me and asked me the other day, how are you able to stay committed as long as you have? And I just told him, like, you just have to have a vision and you have to be dedicated to making sure you carry out that vision and you don't let anybody disrupt you from carrying it out. That's what you have to do. And that's what I've tried to do. It's not been perfect, but that's what I've tried to do is stay true to my vision. My vision is I want to do the work that the ancestors put me here to do. And I feel like that work is one unified socialist Africa, Pan-Africanism. And I feel like that because I know that that's what African people need. And I know that that's the best way we can contribute to helping everybody else get their freedom and liberation as well. And nothing on earth is ever going to derail me from that vision. So that's what you have to do is get that vision. And you cannot stay true to a vision like that because you will be disrespected, you will be criticized, you will be knocked down every step of the way, routinely. That's a way of life for revolutionaries in backward societies, in a backward world. So the only way that you can stay on target and keep going is that you have to have a strong foundation in who you are as a human being and why you do what you do. And I say that because for me, our revolutionary ideology, inclumism, Toureism, cabralism, that provides that for me. And I'm saying this because for Christians or Muslims or whoever, those faiths are supposed to provide that for them. And so that's why we raise the contradiction that that's what needs to happen. And we need to push them, the revolutionaries, the true ones, not the ones that just say it and don't do anything, but the true revolutionaries need to push those folks to be true to the principles that they say they represent and move this whole thing away from this Lexus and Tesla based Christianity. This mansion based Christianity, this mega church based Christianity. TD Jakes and what's the other fool that Joel Osteen and all these fools are criminals against humanity. That's what they are. And we need to call that as it is. And we need to talk about how when we push to bring justice in the minds of Christians, then we won't have sham holidays. We'll have days that are dedicated to live the life of Jesus in the true sense, fighting against injustice, fighting against that Roman Empire. And when we do that, our victory will be within vision for us. So we thank you for joining us. We want to invite you back next week. I will not be here. I will be in the interior, but Shakura will be here to talk about a very important topic. 65 years of the Cuban Socialist Revolution. 65 years of the Cuban Socialist Revolution. So you definitely do not want to miss that. Next Sunday, same time, same place, Our Ancestors' Voices. All right. And in the upper left-hand corner, we have the red QR code. You can find within that, if you scan your smartphone to it, all of the AAPRP programs, and there are 5 or 6 that we have going on a regular basis. I saw that the Pan-African Weekly News is going on Thursdays again, so check that out. And the other programs, the link to the Forward Ever shop is there. You know, hopefully if you are a person that commemorates this holiday today, I'm where I am, it's already December 25th, then you can at least give them some conscious material that you purchased from the All African People's Revolutionary Party's Forward Ever shop, which you can find the link in that QR code. And go to Hood Communist. No articles are coming out this week, but they have wonderful articles from last week. I was honored and fortunate enough to write one of them that's in there that's talking about Zionist Israel and the contradictions with Africa and why every conscious African should be anti-Zionist. So Hood Communist, you should check it out anyway. So please do that. And within that QR code also is a betterworld.me. I'm not going to go to sleep and probably until about 2 a.m. because I want to put this video up so people can see it. And I got to get up early at about 6 because we're going to get on the road for the 5-hour drive to Cape Coast and the slave dungeon. So this is the life of a revolutionary. I wouldn't have it any other way. Go to www.aprp-intl.org. Join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We want you to join, but if you don't want to join us, join some organization working for our people and working for justice. And the bottom QR code is for our on the ground project in Burkina Faso, Burkina Books, sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So we want you to become a sponsor of that program. So go ahead and sign up and become a sponsor of that. And again, go and get my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. Well, yeah, I already bought your book. Well, buy some more and give them away, or tell people and buy them, because the money, 100% of the proceeds I get, all that gas I had to pay for, hotel room, to get the fascists, to do the anti-fascist work, Just before I left here, I was doing anti-fascist work in Sacramento the Tuesday night before we left here. So all that work I fund through proceeds from my book sales. So please help me. Obviously, that MSNBC is not going to promote my book. CBS is not going to promote it. So if we don't have word of mouth, it's not going to be known. So we ask you to help us, please. And those of you that are, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we ask you to continue to do that. So we thank you all for joining us today. I'm so honored to come to you from our homeland, Africa, here in the Kumasi region of Ghana in West Africa. And if you're African and you have not been here, you need to figure out a way to plan to come, and I will help you do that on my own time, because every African needs to go home, needs to come home. Every African needs to be able to do that. So hit me up if you're interested in more information about that. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. It's Monday here, but enjoy the rest of your Sunday or Monday, wherever you are. Forward ever, backwards never. Take care of yourselves, and we will be back here next week.